Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Podcast. This is your roundup of companies making news on Wall Street and beyond, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Let's take a look at some stocks on the move today. And with us is Bloomberg News cross-asset reporter Denitsa Sikova on Friday's Stock Movers. There were, despite what was a kind of funny day again, some significant stocks that stood out, clearly either up or down today. One of the big gainers was Boeing.
For sure. Boeing was the big news of the day, of course, winning the next generation U.S. fighter contract. What we saw initially was 6% jump. Some of those gains faded, so the stock closed still 3% higher. That was actually enough to push it into year-to-date gains instead of year-to-date losses. So that's a small technical thing. What we saw, of course, is we're hearing hundreds of billions of dollars being spent. We're talking about that new 6th-generation fighter jet. President Trump said that this will ensure that the USA continues to dominate the skies. Obviously, this has been ongoing for 2 years. It's a really big deal. And on the other side of the deal, we have Lockheed Martin, which actually had a pretty tough day. They were down nearly 6% on the day.
Because a bummer, right? They didn't get the deal.
They didn't get it. And in 2022, there was another contract which they actually get. So there was some expectations there. But
I love the defense area, right, Tim? Like, it's always the battle for the contract. And sometimes contracts are split among different companies. And then other times it's like one clear winner and one clear loser.
Well, I was watching this from the Oval Office, President Trump, along with Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary. This secret Boeing plane has been flying for the last 5 years. I was looking for pictures of it. I couldn't find anything. This thing's super secret. I want to see this thing.
There is very little information about the spending as well. We heard 100 billions from the president, but there has been other figures that have been out there. So it's really hard to tell exactly what's the plan.
All right, so let's talk about some other decliners. FedEx was certainly front and center. We talked about it throughout our broadcasts as well. You have to talk about it. It's such a good company to watch, a great economic bellwether.
Exactly, bellwether. We have weakening consumer affecting them, and we have the trade war really affecting them. And all those words people are so worried about, like inflation, consumer, it's clearly a really good gauge of this. That said, it started the day down about 12%. Those losses were paired to about 6%, so there was some relief there. Obviously, the market moved higher as well, so that was part of it. But the big negative reaction came after the company lowered its full-year guidance for a third consecutive quarter, and it cited inflation, which obviously market participants are very, very worried about. The company has big exposure to a lot of things in the global economy. You can imagine with the trade war ongoing and escalating, things get very complicated. And something interesting in their outlook is said that in their current outlook, they assume that things don't change, don't worsen. So you can imagine if things escalate from here, maybe we can see more pain for the company, which is already down 18% year to date. Staying on the consumer, Nike. Again, something that we're worried about the growing trade war. That was something that was mentioned. And we have this big turnover in Nike that has been happening for some times. Nike shares ended the day 5% lower, thanks to a subdued outlook with their third quarter results. Year-to-date losses are 10%. That said, there was a lot of optimism. We talked about it quite a few times in these few weeks. They had the Skims campaign. They had the Super Bowl ad. So there was like a lot of upgrades and people were quite positive on the stock. So there is some underlying optimism, but clearly the weak consumer backdrop, the tariffs are putting pressure on yet another retail name.
Yeah, I keep thinking about that Super Bowl ad, right? All women. And I do think about, we were talking with our Kim Basine about, is Nike still relevant? And it seems like their new CEO is out there talking to sports, to well-known athletes and thinking about, I guess, how they're using different, products from them and how to leverage it. So, you can't, count them out yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about the new collection. I'm really spent all my money on gym clothes, so I'm excited.
You mean the Skims collection?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, right, that partnership, like maybe what they can do with it could be pretty cool. I think what's interesting too is that a lot of these names that you just talked about, you mentioned Nike, it was down 9% at its lows, but finished well off that worst level. Same thing for FedEx. So we did see that happen maybe in the trade, right? A bounce off the lows for a lot of names today.
For sure, which is good news.
The Stock Movers Podcast from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.